This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. And coming up later in the show, Maine Secretary of State Matt Dunlap will dazzle us with his fly tying ability.
The flies I tied looked like flies, but they looked like flies that had gone through a bug zapper. You know.
And I'll ask Shannon Leroy if I can cast a fly farther by taking a running start.
No.
Darn. Also coming up, a bunch of canoeists are hitting the waters this month to recreate Henry David Thoreau's famous treks into the Maine woods. It's the 150th anniversary. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by EBS Building Supply, Van Raymond Outfitters, Napa Auto Parts, Hammond Lumber, and the Old Town Trading Post. First, we've got to talk about something that's not happening. The Orono Bog Boardwalk is not open yet, and Jim Bird kicks off the show.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Well, you're the director of the Orono Bog Boardwalk, and you've got your hands full right now.
Yeah, we do. We're opening up for our 12th year, but it's going to be delayed this year. Usually opening is May 1st. We hope to open by June 15th. Have a lot of work to do between now and then.
Yeah, normally it would have opened by this weekend, but what happened?
Well, right now we have 105 sections that we have to put in. We took those out in October last year, and we were hoping for our new sections before, we were hoping to get them in sometime in the fall, or part of them. Didn't happen, and so now, because of the wet weather and snow and freezing, we're basically have to put them in between now and June 15th.
Yeah, there's a rumor going around that we had a tough winter.
Yeah, we did. It was hard.
Well, the boardwalk is just over a decade old, and I am struggling to remember exactly why and how did it become a boardwalk.
Well, back in the 90s and 80s and before, Ron Davis, who is he's an emeritus professor now here on campus, he had been taking students out into the Orono Bog for his plant ecology, things like that. And Ron decided that it would be good to have a boardwalk out there, so basically build it, disturb the area one time, and then everybody would have a nice boardwalk to go and to view the plants and animals from a boardwalk. And so Ron got it going back in the late 90s, and then there was a number of us that helped build it in 2002 and 3, and it opened June 2003.
Well, the idea worked because it's turned out to be one of the most popular outdoor features in all of the Bangor area.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Last year we had somewhere around 28,000 visits. We're pretty sure that we're up about 300,000 visits now, so since it's opened. And we have a really nice education program bringing out over 1,000 school children and others on guided tours. We have you participated in them, led a bird walk, and we have about 10 to 12 nature walks every year, every season, on birds and plants and hydrology and all sorts of things. So, yeah, it's really popular. I think we've had visitors from all 50 states and probably upwards to 30 foreign countries.
What kind of wood was the boardwalk originally built out of?
Well, it was built out of hemlock.
Mm-hmm.
There's parts of it that are okay. We hope that the first 105 that we took out will put the wood composite with aluminum framing and stainless steel legs in, and then what we're going to be doing, that's up to Section 105, which is basically, if you've been out there, it's the split where it goes on to Orono property. Mm-hmm. And then we'll go to Phase 2 of our fundraising, which we're in now, to get the next 150 sections paid for and hopefully delivered by the end of the year.
When you come right down to it, a bog is a wetland. It doesn't necessarily look like it's standing water, but it's a damp environment the entire way around.
Yeah, it is. And I can't remember, somewhere around 3/5 of our sections, maybe 2/5 are on floats, 1x4 foot floats, and the rest of it is on sort of composite bracing, composite bridges.
Well, none of this is cheap.
No.
So you must be facing that dollar sign figure.
Yeah, I mean, the first 105 sections plus a couple wheelchair turnouts and the 2 interpretive stations were right around $223,000. And so now what we're trying to raise is $298 additional $298,000 to get the first half of the boardwalk done out to Section 250. And we're not there yet, but we're somewhere around $40,000 to $50,000 into that.
And when you consider that this is a free thing that's offered to Eastern Maine, and all the people who have used it, that's a bargain that the community should in some way be helping you out with.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is, and, when we're open, we, regularly get donations and we sell our T-shirts and hats, but, now we're at the point where we're really going to need some, good contributions to come in. I mean, we are working on the fundraising part of it. We have a number of grants out, and we've got a number of things coming up to raise money. Our annual yard sale on June 14th, and we're organizing a run out in the city forest with Epic Sports and September 20th, and the Bangor Arts Society is doing their paint out let's see if I got the date here, August 16th. They're partnering with us, and we get a percentage of the paintings that are auctioned off that evening at Gracie Theater. So we've got a number of things in the works. We've had a number of individual donors that have, given $1,000 or more, which is great. We are offering new sections for $1,000 sponsorship. So that's part of our fundraising efforts as well.
So if somebody wanted to write you a check or max out a credit card, how would they do that?
Well, they could go to our website, www.ornobogwalk.org, and on there, if you click on Challenge, you'll find out about addresses, and we have our campaign fund at the University of Maine Foundation. There's a direct link to their online giving site. If you just Google Ornobog Boardwalk, you'll find the website, and you basically can follow the link through Challenge and get to addresses of the foundation, also online giving, our P.O. Box in Orono for donations. So there's a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm. When do you think this is going to reopen?
We're shooting for June 15th.
Okay.
We'll see what happens. It may be a little later, but we'll work really hard because we know there's a lot of people that really want to use it, and we've already had to sort of turn away some school groups that normally come out in May because we have anywhere from 20 to 30 school groups every year, and usually May, first part of June, and then September, October to come out and visit. So we've had to turn away the May ones, and hopefully we've got some walks actually lined up for the latter part of June, so we'll hopefully be open by then.
Is anything going to look different when you get out there after it opens?
Well, it'll look a little different. I mean, one thing that will be different, we'll now have handrails across the first 16 sections, which basically goes over a lag or water, and that's for basically, safety reasons, and so that will be handrails there.
Well, I chuckled a little bit when you mentioned putting the handrails up over the first 16 sections, because I was out there just about a year ago, and as I was wandering back, a bear comes running through the woods and jumps right over the boardwalk.
Wow.
If he does that this year, he's going to go boing.
Well, now the handrails are only going to be on the beach at the start of the boardwalk up to Interpretive Station 1. Mm-hmm. So that's basically, it's about 3 to 3.5 feet above the water level there. So, but yeah, we've seen bears out there, and I don't think there'll be any problems. I don't think we'll have a problem.
Except for the bear.
Well, I don't think they'll be in that water part right in that beginning. So.
All right, now let's repeat the website address again so all the information is available online. Where?
It's www.ornobogwalk.org.
That's Jim Bird, director of the Orono Bog Boardwalk. Up next, it's been 150 years since Henry David Thoreau published a book about his adventures in the Maine woods. It was timber harvesting then, and it's timber harvesting now. But a bunch of folks are looking at ways to improve our economy by squeezing more out of the northern forest. And they're going to recreate Thoreau's paddle route this month. That's next on Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine as we continue on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. There's a lot of us who are always trying to figure out how to improve the Maine economy, especially in the northern half of the state. And some of that is pretty well organized. The Northern Forest Center is one of those outfits. Mike Wilson is spearheading the effort in Maine. To publicize the effort, they're paddling Henry David Thoreau's old route through the Maine woods this month. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Well, Mike Wilson of Northern Forest Center. What are you guys?
We're a nonprofit organization. We're a little different than some. We're a regional organization, so we work all across northern Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and New York. And our mission really is to advocate for the northern forest region and to help communities in this region benefit from forest-based conservation and economic initiatives.
Now, someone listening right now, and I don't know who that is, but somebody listening to the show is saying, oh, great, another bunch of folks in southern Maine who want to save us from ourselves in northern Maine. You've heard that echoed before, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Do you have a response for that?
Again, the Northern Forest Center is a somewhat different organization. We're not involved so much in, for example, state-level policy advocacy or even land conservation deals, though we do get involved with community forests, development of community forests. Mm-hmm. Our work has really evolved over the years into really looking at, again, how do we develop, support new emerging economic opportunities to help generate economic opportunity in the region. We're not trying to protect 1 million acres for this purpose or that purpose.
You're not Restore.
No. And again, and we're not really a conservation organization.
Right.
I think people often think of the Northern Forest Center just because of the name of it. We kind of look and smell like a conservation organization, and we work closely with a lot of great organizations that do work in that realm. But our focus really is on communities, economic development, culture in the region.
Really what you're talking about is a diversified economy. We in the northern woods have been probably reliant on paper making and lumbering and logging, et cetera, for a very long time, and that's what we're used to, but that's not diversified.
Yeah, and again, I'll be quick to say that continues to be an absolutely vital part of our economy in this region. But the areas, the Northern Forest Center, we really work in 5 sectors. If that's one is tourism and recreation. Another is secondary wood products manufacturing. So that's not necessarily the paper mill scale, but furniture makers, turning mills, those types of facilities.
I'm always surprised to find out how much veneer that we make up here.
Yeah. So again, but we've got tourism, secondary wood products manufacturing, community scale biomass energy. We're very involved with the development of thermal-based pellet heating in the region for both residential and commercial use. We think that's a very, very important and exciting opportunity for the region. We're doing some work to help develop markets for ecosystem services or environmental services, like protecting water quality, carbon sequestration. Sorry, I know that even that you get caught up in the words in these things sometimes, but developing markets for the services that the forest has always provided that we've always taken for granted. So that's an area of our work, and like I said before, we're also involved helping communities develop actual community-owned forests.
I think what gets people confused is I actually made a list of some of the organizations: Maine Woods Discovery, which you're familiar with, Forest Society of Maine, Maine Woods Consortium, Maine Woods Forever, Forest for Maine's Future, Maine Tree Foundation, AMC's Maine Woods Initiative, the Maine Woods Coalition, which was actually formed to fight the national park idea. It's like there's so many Maine woods and Maine forest things going on, it's hard to keep track of them all.
It's true.
Is there any way to pull this all together, or are you the one doing it?
I don't think it's realistic to ever. You're never going to pull it all into one big thing. It would lose some of its beauty and strength, really, because within all those different organizations, there's a lot of different levels of expertise and specialization that has real value. A lot of the way that the Northern Forest Center works, again, we work across a big scale. I mean, the Maine Woods is a very big scale, but we also have the Northern New Hampshire Woods and the Vermont Woods and the Adirondack Woods. So we've got a very big region that we work with. So Maine is a sub-region for us. And the only way that we're able to have impact at that scale is to really work through networks across the region. So 2 of those groups that you mentioned, the Maine Woods Consortium and Maine Woods Discovery, are initiatives that the Northern Forest Center is essentially coordinating. So again, that's our role. A big part of what we're able to do is deliver some capacity to help bring coordination to some of these types of initiatives.
That seems to be what we're really missing, is the capacity. We've got a lot of willpower. We just don't seem to have the tools and the organizational capacity to get it done.
Yeah, well, and it doesn't just automatically happen. We sometimes think that if you have a good idea, all the organizations are going to jump in and start to move it. But our experience has been that to move one of these ideas, to get a number of organizations working together on something, it just simply takes time and capacity. You need to have someone in that place who's going to convene that meeting and take the notes and get it out and follow up on things and capitalize on the strength of that network.
Well, you're so right, because there's no lack of good people getting into a room and talking about the problem. The follow-up is what really kills us, I think. So.
Yeah, and frankly, that is the,
yeah.
I will say it's harder to raise money for that. Than it is to, do a specific project.
So that's the Northern Forest Center and its mission, basically. But you've got the 150th anniversary tour of the Maine Woods coming up. What is that?
That, again, I will try not to go too far back, but stepping back into two of those organizations you mentioned, the Maine Woods Consortium and Maine Woods Discovery. The Maine Woods Consortium is a group that the Northern Forest Center coordinates that includes the economic development organizations in each of what we'd consider the 7 Maine Woods counties, a number of conservation groups, couple forestry groups. So it's about 16 organizations involved there, and that group's been working together in different forms for, say, 5 or 6 years now. We've been in the coordinator seat for about 3 of those years, maybe 4 now. And that group has really focused it's really found a niche within the tourism development sector. Mm-hmm. A big piece of the work that we've done there has been developing what we call the Maine Woods Tourism Training Initiative, through which we've developed county-level training networks in each of the 7 counties that are basically deliver in each county 3 to 5 training workshops per year for businesses or frontline employees within the tourism sector to help increase their capacity, their ability to succeed both as business owners and employees. The other program that has grown out of this work with the Maine Woods Consortium is something called Maine Woods Discovery, which was originally launched in 2009. The consortium got involved in around 2011. It was an idea to bring together some of the top tourism businesses to start to develop packages together, that type of thing. In its early years, it didn't quite take off, I think, the way some of us thought it might. More recently, particularly in the last year, 18 months, we've taken that idea of cooperative marketing by high-quality outdoor recreation businesses and combined it with the idea of essentially a quality endorsement program, a standards-based quality endorsement program, where we've developed a set of criteria, a set of basically best practices and standards a questionnaire that we can use to start to assess that. And there's a core group of 8 businesses that are involved right now, and actually just in the next few weeks we're going to roll out a recruiting program to grow that to 20 this spring, with an eye to growing it additionally up to 30 or 40 in the coming year. But to really help to bring together the collective capacity of some of our really high-quality outdoor recreation providers and use that effort also to promote best practices, encourage other businesses to make the investments that they need both in training of their staff and their facilities to raise the overall quality of the tourism product that's available in the Maine Woods.
Mike Wilson of the Northern Forest Center is my guest on Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. We've been discussing initiatives to improve the Northern Maine economy, and we've been leading up to an event that happens in another couple of weeks, a recreation of Henry David Thoreau's paddles through the Maine Woods. That's next on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Later in the show, Secretary of State Matt Dunlap will be on to talk about his new fly tying skills, or lack thereof. But right now, Mike Wilson of the Northern Forest Center is my guest, and we're talking about cooperative marketing efforts to improve the Maine economy. And somehow, Canoe Trip figures in all that, Mike.
As part of that cooperative marketing effort, we've hit upon this idea of the 150th anniversary Thoreau Wabanaki Tour, which is essentially commemorating the fact that it was 150 years ago this year that the book The Maine Woods by Henry David Thoreau was published. So it was published in 1864. The book is his description of three separate trips that he took to the Maine Woods, 1847, 1853, 1857. And his experiences in Maine were profound. It really helped to shape his thinking about nature, about wilderness. Particularly 2 of the trips, he was very much dependent on and supported by Penobscot Indian guides. Mm-hmm. His Thoreau's last words on his deathbed were moose, an Indian. And so again, he's clearly an important figure in American literature and American thinking about the natural world, and his experiences in Maine were really formative and profound for him. So this is an opportunity to do a couple things. It's one, to commemorate the importance of that book and his work and his experience in the region, but at the same time, to promote the fact that the type of experience he had in this place 150 years ago is still available to people today. If you go back to the places that he traveled in today, you can have basically the same experience. It continues to be undeveloped wild forest land, managed for timber as it was when he traveled through the region. And it continues to provide really opportunities for really, truly outstanding outdoor recreation opportunities.
Yep, you've laid out a trip that's going to be done in 6 segments, which is mostly, I guess, a media and VIP type of tour. It's not open to the public, is it?
It's not open to the public. What it really is there's kind of 4 groups of people that are going to be involved in the trip, and I'll back up just a step. Essentially, what we're going to do starting on May 16th is we're going to, as Maine Woods Discovery, we're going to retrace the route taken in 1857 by Henry David Thoreau and his Penobscot guide, Joe Polis, which was, they started on Indian Island, they took the stagecoach up to Greenville, paddled the full length of Moosehead Lake, carried over into the west branch of the Penobscot River, continued up to Chesuncook Lake, carried into the headwaters of the Allagash, paddled across Webster Stream through what is now Baxter State Park into the east branch of the Penobscot River, then south to the main stem of the Penobscot River and back to Indian Island. That's the route that we're going to follow, basically between May 16th and May 31st, assuming the ice is out of Moosehead Lake.
No kidding.
We are watching that carefully. But the group that's going to be involved, it's quite interesting. It's essentially a group of Maine Woods Discovery endorsed guides and outfitters. Mahusic Guide Service will be in the lead guide seat. New England Outdoor Center will be involved.
I figured they would be.
Yep. And again, they're very involved. Again, Matt Polstein will be involved with some of the guiding, but also they're really providing very important logistical support to the whole thing. Then additionally, the second group that's involved is a number of representatives of the Penobscot Nation. Because just as Thoreau never would have been able to take the trips and have the experiences he had in the Maine woods, the Penobscots play a very important role as cultural guides to the region and helping us understand their experience of the region as their homeland for centuries.
Which is a real wake-up call. I invite everybody to listen more and more to what the Penobscots have to say about their own culture and the region, because it really should educate us.
Yeah, and we have no doubt that will be our experience on the trip. So we're really grateful for their participation. There's a number of people that James Francis, the tribal historian, will be along. Chris Sokolexis, who's their historic preservation officer, will be along. So we're really excited about their participation, the opportunity to take this kind of a trip with them. The third group that will be involved is a number of Thoreau scholars, a number of people from around the country who are teach in universities and make their living studying, researching Thoreau, his role in American literature, his role in the evolution of American thought around the environment. So we'll have this combination of Maine Woods guides, outfitters, representatives from the Penobscot Nation, and Thoreau scholars. We'll be retracing this route, following along the same route that Thoreau took, experiencing the same rapids and the same portages, the same views that he had when he was there, and really reflecting on how things are the same, how things are different, and really having, I anticipate, a very, very rich interaction while we're out there. The other group that will be involved is we're inviting media representatives to come along, again, from both state level and regional and national level media outlets, to come and share in that experience and help to share that experience with people across the country. As we go, we also will have we will not completely cut ourselves off from technology. We will find ways to allow people to follow the trip. We'll actually have tracking device that people can follow us on a map, and we'll have basically satellite texting capacity, so we'll be able to send messages back. We'll find opportunities to get photos out and really encourage people to follow us on Maine Woods Discovery website, Facebook page.
Yeah, about 3/4 of that route, though, you're not going to have cell phone service.
Oh, no, we're not good. We're very little of that are we going to have cell phone coverage.
Well, I was looking at the route, and there's a lot of portaging. You're going to start on Moosehead, Then go over to the West Branch. That's about 2 miles of portage. Chesuncook, that's not too bad if the wind isn't too bad.
Well, that's going to be the case on all the lakes, especially Moosehead. We need the ice to get off Moosehead. We need it to not be too windy.
Webster Stream, you're going to paddle that?
Yep.
Oh boy. I've not done that one. That's, I think, beyond any capabilities I ever had.
Yeah, and we'll be carrying around a lot of things.
Yeah. Okay.
The lower third of Webster Stream, I know there are some drops that we'll definitely be carrying around, and then in the upper part of the East Branch of the Penobscot River has a number of pretty significant rapids as well. And as Thoreau did, I think I don't have the exact quote. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but in his book he makes reference to they had heard that there was something called Grand Pitch in the East Branch of the Penobscot, and every waterfall they came to, they assumed that it was Grand Pitch, but it turned out that there were 5 or 6 different Grand Pitches as they went along that they kept having to carry around. Mm-hmm. So we know we'll have a similar experience. Doing this whole trip will not be for the faint of heart. Our hope is that we'll be right between the snow and the black flies. That would be our ideal, to not have too much of either of those.
Well, at some point during this journey, I'm not going to be able to paddle because it's the height of my bird guiding season, but I would love to find a day to just meet you in the riverbank somewhere and enjoy part of the tradition you're bringing back to us.
Well, we are hopeful that you will be able to come along and maybe paddle for a day, maybe on the East Branch or the lower part of the Penobscot. And if people are interested and can follow us online on the last day of the trip, I expect that we will be encouraging people to meet us out on the Penobscot River for the last 10 miles or so of the trip, so that we can really have a flotilla of people together celebrating the Maine woods and Thoreau's experience there with his Penobscot guides.
And best of all, of course, if you get a nice little north breeze, you don't even have to paddle.
That would be nice. As long as if the wind can shift so it's from the south at the beginning of the trip and the west in the middle and from the north at the end, that would be real good.
If you can pull that off, then you can get tourism developed in the North Woods. That's Mike Wilson of the Northern Forest Center. And they start paddling 2 weeks from today. Up next, the Appalachian Mountain Club has several fly fishing workshops coming up at one of my all-time favorite sporting camps, Little Lyford. Shannon Leroy returns to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine to give you the inside scoop on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. And to be honest, I never miss a chance to get Shannon Leroy on the show. She coordinates many of AMC's programs in the Moosehead area, and they're about to do some fly fishing. It's good to have you back, Shannon.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm on the Appalachian Mountain Club website, and I go to check out the fly fishing workshops at Little Lyford, and there is another photo of you.
Yeah, I'm very famous.
Does anyone at AMC know how to fly fish besides you?
Oh, yeah, we have several new stars. We have Lainey LaCase, and we have Rance Acorn. So we have a couple new pitchers out there now.
Okay. The fly fishing lessons, you've got some lesson weekends coming up. I think the first one is, May 23rd through 25, and that's a beginning workshop?
That's correct, and it is full. And I had 2 calls today for people begging to get in. Mm-hmm. So that one is full, and it has a waiting list. And
you also have an expert weekend, the following weekend?
Yeah, we call it advanced fly fishing, yeah. And it's really more brush up on rusty skills. Mm-hmm. It's not really a great one for beginners because we don't go into a lot of knot tying and casting. When we do the casting, we go into longer casts and more accurate casting in the advanced workshop.
I'm thinking that a lot of people didn't know about it in time, and maybe they'd be interested for next year because you're going to do this again considering the success you've had this year.
Yes, and we do have a beginning fly fishing workshop in September as well.
Okay.
Which does have openings.
Well, there's no drive-ups. You actually spend the weekend there where basically AMC takes care of everything.
That's correct. You go in, we even have rods and reels and everything. We can set you up with everything you need. You get a box of flies that we get from the Maine Guide Fly Shop here in Greenville. Mm-hmm. And we take you out on the river, which is right behind Little Lyford, or we take you over to the ponds, first Little Lyford and second Little Lyford Pond, with canoes and teach you how to fish out of a canoe. And then we also have a couple of what we call our remote pond-guided excursions where we take you out to the different remote ponds in our area. And all of this is for eastern wild and native eastern brook trout.
I would think that there's a difference between fishing from dry land and fishing from a canoe, if for no other reason than you can't really stand up as tall.
There is a difference when you're fishing in a canoe than when you're fishing in land. The first thing is there's usually somebody else in the canoe, so you don't want to catch them. So we teach you the rules on that, and then, we show you where on a pond you might most likely find fish, because fish aren't just everywhere in the pond. They're usually in certain places where they can feed.
Yeah, especially if there's any kind of really cold underground stream coming into the pond, that tends to be a little cooler.
That, and we also know where the spring holes are, too,
yeah,
so that helps.
Exactly. All right.
That's why you need a guide.
Yeah. And by golly, you are one.
By golly.
Yeah. Yeah, and as I say, fishing from a canoe, I mean, you can't stand up as tall, so getting the line off the water must be a little bit different than when you're standing on shore.
Yeah, it takes a little more finesse to cast, to pick your line up and move it across the canoe and, plant it where you want to.
What is the one biggest mistake you think beginners make?
They try to use muscle instead of finesse, because, casting a rod is more like stopping and starting rather than muscle. And I find that women do it better than men in the beginning because women don't try to muscle it.
This is like the third time I've heard that from an expert, so it must be true. Catch and release, or are you going to eat the fish for dinner?
If you want, it is not catch and release. It's fly fishing only, but it's general law, so you can bring in 5 fish 6 inches or bigger. The chef is happy, the cooks at the camp are happy to cook up your fish for dinner or a fish for breakfast if you want.
Yep.
Most people only bring in 1 if they want to bring in a fish, but that's okay because these are small ponds. There's lots of fish in there, and it's nice to reduce the population so there's not too many fish vying for the same food.
Right. Now, Little Lyford is way in the woods. Can you promise me that my cell phone won't work?
I can promise you your cell phone will not work at Little Lyford.
Excellent.
I can't promise you that at Gorman, but I can promise you at Little Lyford.
That's an extra plus as far as I'm concerned, because there are many occasions where I don't want to be reached. And going to Little Lyford where my cell phone doesn't work is a real plus.
It is. A lot of people go through withdrawals, but it's a good thing to go through once in a while, just to remember what life is like before the cell phone.
Yeah. Now, after you take the beginner course one weekend, are you ready for the advanced course, or do you need a whole summer to practice?
You could move in if you feel comfortable with your casting. You could move into the advanced course because we do work on a longer, more accurate cast in our advanced fly fishing workshop.
Yeah. So the advanced course is really more about getting the fly exactly where you want it. You've mastered the basics of getting the fly out there. Now you're improving your accuracy.
You're improving your accuracy, you're improving your distance, and you're learning more about the flies that you're going to be using, and we even do a section on tying your own flies.
Okay. What is the biggest mistake you see experienced anglers make?
The biggest mistake.
I would say getting in the canoe with the wrong person.
Okay, that works. I think the biggest mistake I see most often with people is the muscling of the rod instead of working it.
Well, let me ask this. If I'm on the beach and if I take a running start, can I cast further?
No.
Darn. All right, next question. Fly fishing versus sitting on the porch with a beer. How does too much wind influence that decision?
Well, too much wind means that you're either going to be doing a side cast to try to get your line out there where you want to go, or you are going to go sit on the porch and not fight the wind knots.
Okay. Well, let's go over the schedule again. You've got the beginner session, which is already full for this year, but you'll do another one in the fall.
Right, and then we have advanced on May 30th through June 1st.
And that's not full as of this conversation.
And it's not full. I just got the program list. It's not full as of this conversation. We have, the next weekend, we have the remote pond excursion.
Yep.
And the weekend after that, we have our women's only fly fishing, where women who want to learn how to fly fish without the pressure of having men around come and join us, and it's always a great time.
And then you have additional activities coming up this fall.
Right. Well, we have another guided remote pond excursion on the 20th to the 22nd, and then we have 2 fly fishing programs in September.
Okay. Where does somebody find all this information?
They find it at www.outdoors, and that's with an S, .org, and under lodging, under Little Lyford, and you'll see where there's activities. Click on that, and fly fishing is one of them. Click on that, and you're in the middle of it.
Okay. What else are you putting together at any of the camps in the area for the summer?
Well, we've got a full summer this year. We start off the first weekend and that we're open with birding, and that's out at Gorman Chairback Lodge.
Yep.
And it's open to anybody who's there, and I'll be out there that weekend, and we'll do early morning bird walks, and then we'll go looking for some of our favorite tough birds to find, like the black-backed woodpecker or the three-toed woodpecker.
Do you have a place to look there?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, don't tell me. I'm going to come find it. I can do that.
I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to make you come find it.
Okay, I'll do that. That's Shannon Leroy of the Appalachian Mountain Club. And the inside joke is that black-backed and three-toed woodpeckers are 2 of the hardest birds to find in Maine. But I happen to be pretty good at it. And I see more of them than anybody else in the state. Period. But enough about me. Let's make fun of Matt Dunlap, Maine Secretary of State. He spent the winter learning how to tie flies. And that story is next as Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine continues on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. You're listening to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Matt Dunlap is Maine Secretary of State, and this winter he learned how to tie flies. Welcome back, Matt.
Well, thank you.
Now, I didn't know you fly fished.
Well, I don't really do as much as I would like to.
Yeah.
I usually get out maybe, 3-4 times a year if I'm lucky, mostly because of my crazy work schedule more than anything. Because working in Augusta and living in Old Town, many side trips are just simply not possible. But I do love to go. In fact, I started, the first time I went fly fishing, I was in the legislature, been named to the Fish and Wildlife Committee, had never done a lot of it, and I wound up sharing an apartment when I was down there with Dick Rulin, the late Dick Rulin, who was a master salmon fisherman and owned a camp up in Canada. And I went to Canada with him and got to go fly fishing for salmon. And, you catch an Atlantic salmon, which is about, one of them is the size of one of your legs.
Right.
And you hook onto one of those things. It's quite an experience. And so I've had the amazing opportunity to do a lot of that type of fishing over the years, and I've really enjoyed it and gotten a lot out of it. Well,
you're Secretary of State, so where do you find the time?
Well, you kind of don't find it. You kind of steal it if you can. And what I do now is I'll take a day in the summertime and I'll hire a guide and I'll go fishing. So that's kind of what I wind up doing. And my wife and I will do a little bit of traveling in the summertime. And one year she surprised me by hiring me a guide who supplied everything, which was great. And so I got to do some fly fishing with him. Well,
I make an inventory of all the outdoor things that Matt Dunlap does, and I know that you have duck hunted before. I know that you try to deer hunt, but mostly just scares them.
I mostly hike in the woods with a gun.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I didn't know fly fishing was on the menu. You can buy flies. What got you into tying them?
Well, it was one of those curious things, again, going back to my days with Dick. He did a lot of his own fly tying, and he taught me how to do a little bit, but I don't think I was a terribly masterful pupil, to say the least. The flies I tied looked like flies, but they looked like flies that had gone through a bug zapper. And, in my travels, because when I was in the legislature, I chaired the Fish and Wildlife Committee and was often asked to be a speaker for this outdoor organization or that, I came upon the Penobscot fly fishers, and And, of course, they are a tremendous organization, and they offer fly tying classes. And finally this winter, it occurred to me that I always forgot to sign up for it. And so I got up on the website, and then, wouldn't you know, the class was starting the very next week, and I called, and they had one slot left.
Oh, that's kismet.
So it worked out just about perfectly. It was an amazing class. It went for 8 weeks, and it only cost $40, and they supplied everything.
Oh, jeez.
So you can't really go wrong with that. They start out, very, very simply with a couple of very simple patterns, and you just learn the basic techniques, and that's what I was really, really into, was just doing that. And of course, then after that, subsequent to that, they have a longer class, actually a shorter class with more complex flies. It's called the intermediate class. It goes for 4 weeks, and I did that too. And so, wound up, tying some pretty amazing patterns.
Now, is this dry flies, wet flies, both?
All of it.
All of it.
All of it. And, because, different flies do different things. I think a lot of people don't realize that. I mean, some of them do imitate flies, like dry flies.
Mm-hmm.
Some imitate emerging nymphs.
Right.
These are the hatchlings of the bugs that sometimes will stay in the water for weeks or for most of their life cycle. And actually, a lot of the lures that you can buy do the same thing. The famous Meps aglia, imitates a dragonfly nymph.
Mm-hmm.
So, the flies that you can tie, you're imitating something that the fish wants to eat. It's a lot of fun to do it on your own. Certainly you learn a lot tying with other people because they have a camera set up over the instructor's shoulder with a big screen so you can actually see what they're doing. And, it's like almost anything in the outdoors, even things like golf. I mean, you can spend as much money as you want to spend doing it.
Well, seeing what you're doing is going to become more and more of a challenge. I mean, you're pushing 50, I think, and I know at my age I can't read a font size less than 14.
Well, and I actually, even though I spend a lot of money for a pair of bifocals, I still see the small stuff close up better with my glasses off. Mm-hmm. And I'm not tying size 16 dry flies. Those are those little tiny hooks about half the size of your pinky nail.
Yeah.
But, the last one that we did was a tandem streamer, and this is the streamers that they use often for trolling for landlocked salmon. It took us about an hour and a half to do the first one, and now I can do one in about maybe 40 minutes. But there's a lot that goes into it. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, everything's there for a reason. So the streamers often will imitate like a fish, and you can do different imitations of different fish. And like I said, the nymphs, and they are teaching us different nymphs too. And some of the patterns that have become more popular in this country but originated in Europe.
Do you think there's going to be a Matt Dunlap signature fly, something that you tie better than anybody else?
Well, I don't know about that. But it's amazing that I can actually make something that looks okay. I came from a family of incredibly talented people, as you know. A couple of my siblings were in music. My brother makes his own guitars,
So it skips a generation.
Well, I don't know what it was. I mean, I think when they were handing out brains, I thought they said trains. I went outside and played. Mm-hmm. I've been very, very lucky to be around that sort of thing, but I was never very good at it myself. So this has been an extraordinary journey and one that's been very, very gratifying. And by the way, the second class was also $10 a week, $40 for the 4 weeks, but it was only $30 if you joined the club. And why not?
Yeah, so really.
I signed up and joined.
Yeah. Well, are any of these flies that you're tying going to see the inside lip of a trout?
That's the goal.
Yeah.
And this is one of the other things that motivates me a little bit. It's kind of like when I've done a lot of different types of hunting, and hiring a guide is great, and you learn a lot. And I will never demean hiring a guide and having somebody do a lot of the work for you. Mm-hmm. It's a great way to learn. But it means so much more when you do it all yourself, front to back, end to end. And that includes a lot of forms of like bow hunting, bear hunting, or most forms of fishing. I mean, I don't go so far as to like build my own rods. I know people that do. But, having now spent, the last 3 or 4 months learning how to tie some flies, I can say with a fair amount of authority that I'm going to work that much harder to make time to get out around Katahdin and do some fishing up there, way up northern Maine. I mean, it's an election year, but a rod and a bag of flies seems to fit pretty well into the trunk of a car. and there's no reason why I can't step off the road for an hour and get some fishing in.
Yeah, it's true. It's going to be an election year. It's going to be a crazy year. What better way to go hide from it all than go up in the woods?
And I think something else I'm going to do is take the Maine birding trail with me and learn a little bit more about the birds I see, because obviously I'm doing a lot with feathers now.
Yep.
And, different feathers obviously represent different things, and it's, why not learn? Why not learn something new? Why not? And this is my justification for doing the fly tying. I thought I might as well do something with myself besides just feed myself a couple of times a day. And the reality is, these fly tying classes, and they're available. I'm not just Penobscot Fly Fishers. Other organizations do it. And once you learn to tie the few basic ones, the rest of it just kind of follows. It makes perfect sense. And YouTube is a great resource.
So you predict that you're going to keep doing this probably as long as you can?
Yeah, why not?
That's your Secretary of State talking. Matt Dunlap has been my last guest. If you want to hear it again or share the show with others, it's on the website at 929theticket.com. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by EBS Building Supply, Van Raven Outfitters, Napa Auto Parts, Hammond Lumber, and the Old Town Trading Post. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine airs every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.